Saki Venta. I'm a member of Black Workers for Justice and a member of the coordinating committee for the Southern Workers Assembly and a lifelong freedom fighter and activist in our people's struggle for liberation. So I just want to, appreciate and thank all of you for joining us tonight. And, we're very excited about being able to have this discussion this evening. And our, hope and view is that, we'll be able to share with each other a lot in terms of our perspective right now in, current conditions that we're facing across this country. The purpose of this webinar, the discussion of fascism and power of the working class and how do we respond. We're confronted with a very, very complex situation, both domestically or internally in the United States and internationally. And, there's a thousand different perspectives and points of view. But this question of rising and the attempt to consolidate fascism in this country, what impact does that have on the working class and the working classes of the oppressed nationalities inside this country, including, the Black working class and really all workers, particularly in the South, which is a central region in terms of, the economic conditions that working people in this country face. So we want to take a look at that tonight, talk about the question of power in the working class and how do we respond. What's our thinking about that? What's the thinking of, workers on the shop floor as well as in the community? And to look at how we build going forward from here, both, before the national election and then once we get the results of the national election, which direction are we taking? What needs to happen and how are people thinking and feeling about that? So we kind of want to learn from each other tonight. And the Southern Workers Assembly obviously is committed to, building power, infrastructure, and organization of working people, particularly in the South, in the fight against this consolidating fascism, but, for the power to transform society. So we have some wonderful speakers for this evening that we're going to start off with. And, to start off naming them, Dominic Harris from Charlotte, City of Charlotte, UE Local 150 will be presenting. We had invited Magali Lacoli from Venturemos, but she's ill tonight. She won't be able to join us. We have Ann Forrester from the Richmond Public Schools and Richmond Education Association, and Joseph Rosenzweig from the UPS, Teamsters Local 270, and Nikisha Pickens from the Union of Southern Service Workers. And so we're going to hear from each of them. The format will be, we'll start off with a question or two and allow all of the panelists to answer, and then we'll move toward opening the discussion up to everybody that's a part of the audience tonight. So again, thank you for being here. Let me just, start with, the first question that we'd like to, at least, begin the conversation with. And that is, how is your organization or your co-workers understanding the implications of the upcoming election and the growth that we're seeing of the far right in this country? And so what kinds of things are you doing in relationship to either the election or preparing for after the election? Some of those kinds of things. How are people viewing that in your shops and local? We'll start with Dominic. Dominic, welcome. And if you want to say a little bit more about yourself, please do.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dominic Harris, UE 150 Charlotte chapter president, and also the treasurer, and also a trustee for the national UE. I'm glad to be here tonight to speak with you all about this looming threat, or should we even call it looming, since it's been a shadow on our democracy for the past, let's see, 8, 9, going on almost 10 years that we had to put up with the increasing threat to what we hold dear and true in our nation, which is our democracy, the one thing that's been holding us together for all of these years. And this fascist threat has been growing ever since the comb over has been allowed to speak on a national level, which he should be. I mean, he's a American citizen, but with that freedom comes a responsibility that I think that he has extremely neglected throughout his entire political life. Um, we seen it early on when he uh, was downplaying not downplaying, but um, trying to suppress the role of the media, starting off by calling them fake news. We know that a lot of news that's on TV is fake. It is coming from this narrative or that narrative. But when he says it, it's not to call them out for the lies that they're saying. It's just to only bring up his lies. He's only calling them fake news just so he can um, spread his own lies on his side to make it seem like his news is the real news. And as we all know that what is it, over 4,000, I might be undercounting 5,000. I think it was more around 100,000 lies that he told, but he hopes that people believe in. And if no one believes in him, you seen what he said just a few weeks ago, that they're the enemy within this nation. And so just by saying the enemy within and having his people believe in the lies that he spews, he aims to suppress not only the media, but people who don't agree with him on the level that he would like. And so if you don't, and you even see this with his vice presidential pick. I'll go a little bit into Project 2025, but because JD Vance was one of the co-authors of that. But with the pick, he only chose JD Vance because Mike Pence, as bad as he was, didn't choose to upset democracy on his behalf. Um, so he got rid of him and chose somebody that would toe that line no matter what, and refuses to accept the results of the 2020 election. Just will not say that Trump lost, and even going farther to say that he won't, or they won't accept the turnout of this next election. They won't accept the results. So we have that looming threat. But all of this is to say that in order to get our members prepared and our organization prepared, we just have to share knowledge. Just have to let everyone be aware of what's happening, where it's coming from, where it can lead to. And if we do that, and just share knowledge and allow people to come to their own conclusions based on actual truth. Now I believe that our organization will be better off in a better position to confront the election results, no matter what they may be.
Are people talking about it on the job, on your?
Yeah. So, I mean, every morning I come into the room, if there's something about the news, into the locker room, if there's something about the news, we usually got a couple of loud ones, um, going at it about what's this and what's not. Some people joke around with it, but I think for the most part that everyone's really aware of what could happen. Um, some people don't view it so
Hmm.
far as a threat because get used to the same old, being the same old. But I think January 6th showed us that the same old could uh, uh, um, become a repetitive cycle. So yeah, people are talking.
Thank you, thank you, brother. Now we'll ask Ann Forrester from Richmond, Virginia, to, to come forward
Hey,
to speak.
Thank you, Shaki. My name's Ann Forrester. I am a 10th and 11th grade English teacher in Richmond Public Schools. I'm also the vice president of the Richmond Education Association, which is the union that represents a majority of Richmond Public Schools employees. We were the first local to win back collective bargaining rights in the state, as there was a ban on public sector bargaining for almost 50 years in Virginia. And so we're in year two of our first contracts and year one of our second contracts. Um, in terms of how we like are navigating the upcoming election with our members, um, I think first off, it's like important to remember it's not just like the national election. I know for us, like our school board is up for election, and the city of Richmond, contrary to what I found a lot of folks at labor notes that come from like big northern cities thought, the city of Richmond is like a democratic city. It's a blue city, and it has been for a long time. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily supportive of organized labor and supportive of like working class issues. We've had a lot of issues with our mayor, with our school board, with our superintendent, related to like union busting and retaliation. So that issue, I think, spans both political parties. Um, but with that said, I think in terms of like this election and what we can do to I want like build power, I think, with our workers is to start thinking about that, right? Like what would it look like for us as working class people to actually have power and control in our work sites, in our neighborhoods, and in our city at like the local level. And so something that our union is working on is like a draft program. It's called The Schools Richmond Students Deserve. And it's based off of similar programs that have been done in places like Chicago and Los Angeles. And so when we do that, like we're building this idea in the minds of our workers that it's not necessarily like one elected official or even one union leader or one mayor or one superintendent or one school board member. It's not a person that is going to like save us from fascism, right? It is our vision and like a program. And so we want people to have faith in like a program and a vision rather than just like faith in other people. And so I think when people have faith in a program and a vision for the future and like what power could look like for working class people in our city, when they have that, they're much less likely to depend on someone else to lead, right? They start to see themselves and their coworkers as leaders. And so that's something that we like
Mm.
really try to instill in our union work and like remind people that like I'm not the union, right? You are the union. It's workers in the workplace. And that's definitely something we did in our caucus work. I'm a member of the Virginia Caucus of Rank and File Educators, or VCOR, which was a rank and file caucus, or is a rank and file caucus that's statewide in Virginia. And we had a local chapter in Richmond. I keep saying past tense like it doesn't still exist. It still exists, and we're still very active. And when we were building up that caucus, we really were changing the mindset about like what a union is, and it's not something that's separate from the workers. It is the workers. And so we did a lot of organizing within our caucus to kind of push our union in the direction it needed to go, and ultimately we won power. And so to answer that question, I think win or lose, neither party is one that is going to be like a means to an end for working class people. And I think we have to see that like consciousness shift that no one's, the Democrats are not going to save us. It's kind of like it's like first aid on a gaping wound, and ultimately
Mm.
we have to get people to realize that like no one's coming to save us from fascism, but us, right? Us and our coworkers, our neighbors, and our community. So.
Yeah, wonderful. Excellent presentation. Um, One of the things that I think is important to realize is that this fascism that we're seeing is a social movement, not just, it has a mass social base that's been building, for the last 40 years or so. And we're seeing the apex of it, begin to emerge now. But, this is very important. So the struggle against that can't happen just at the individual level. We have to have a mass social movement, a base ourselves among the working class that is able to fight back. Uh, Next, we'll have Joseph uh, Rosenzweig, uh, and he's with UPS and the Teamsters Local 270. Welcome, Joseph.
Thank you, Shaki, and thank you for the panelists for speaking, for your contributions and for your role in the fight back. Um, as Ashaki said, I'm a Teamster. I'm a rank and filer in Local 270, and I work as a package handler at a warehouse in New Orleans East. Um, I wanted to share a little bit of the work that we're doing here in Louisiana, and that partly means conveying our thinking around the development of fascism. Here we're under the rule of this wannabe Trump Landry. Um, and so we have our own problems to deal with. But I wanted to start by sort of posing this imaginary situation um, in which we go to the polls on November 5th and get to vote on, let's say, a price cap for food, gas, household utilities, and other essential goods and services. Or maybe we went to vote on whether or not we wanted our tax dollars to fund military contractors that are getting rich from war. Maybe we vote to raise the minimum wage, or to make housing, healthcare, or a job a universal legal right. So how would the vote go? You know, I mean, I'd say we'd sweep it. Um, and the labor movement, I think, needs to, as a truism, represent workers, which is to say the majority that is unrepresented at the ballot box. Our movement will grow stronger, and we will enlist more and more of that majority the harder we fight for all that we're denied by the two capitalist parties that dominate the U.S. electoral system. We did not win the right to a union at the ballot box. This is not how we won unemployment benefits or Social Security. We won these things by militant action and sacrifice. We won these things by organizing workers' councils of the employed, of the unemployed, of all nationalities, of different immigration statuses. And we won these rights through strikes, through hunger marches, by occupying factories. And we can carry this proud history forward, I'm sure of it. This is to say that the labor movement extends beyond the forming of unions or the negotiating of contracts, important as that work is, vitally important. It's to say that unions have a stake in the defense of every social benefit that the working class has won. Poverty and insecurity in any sector of the working class drags down the rest. And any worker, of course, who's maintained a picket line knows that the unemployed or the underemployed are the first to be targeted by the capitalists to be scabs, to break the strike. If any fight, if we're involved in any kind of fight, we got to know what we're up against. And so we have to understand clearly and convey to our coworkers what's behind the cost of living, the high cost of living. Why is it that our wages have stagnated for around 50 years? In other words, who sets prices? Who pays wages? It's the capitalists. And it's an ever smaller group of them at this point. One statistic that is really stunning, 26 billion billionaires own more than half of the world's population. These are the major shareholders at the banks, the fossil fuel firms, and the military corporations in control primarily of the US and NATO member governments. In Louisiana, many of the anti-worker, anti-LGBTQ, anti-immigrant bills passed by the legislature in Baton Rouge are actually drafted by ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council. It's a group that's mainly funded by oil and gas billionaires. And these are the forces that are fueling the rise of fascism. Fascism is a form of capitalist rule which relies on repression and lies. Repression, of course, is carried out by the cops, ICE, Border Patrol, CIA, etc., all of which, I'm sorry to say, have expanded under the Biden administration. And as for the lies and the hate, they're spread by the billionaire-owned media. which are increasingly linked to these agencies of oppression. Here I mean, Meta, Alphabet, Twitter, the billionaire-owned media companies. So both bludgeon and poison are used to enforce the dictatorship of the capitalists, especially as they resort to desperate measures like wars to preserve or expand their markets and the resources under their control. To finance war, this is important, these capitalists loot the national treasury for funds and take out debts which are passed to the workers for repayment. This is how they justify making cuts to social benefits, how they justify raising the age of retirement, etc. There's just one illustration. I'd like to remind people here of the debt ceiling bill and fiasco of 2023, that under the threat of a government shutdown, a deal was reached by the Democrats and Republicans, which imposed work for food requirements, SNAP and TANF work requirements, restarted the payment of student loans, sped up fossil fuel permits. Now record permits have been issued in the last few years. Cut $21 billion from IRS, which is for collecting from the rich primarily. Cut $28 billion in COVID spending. And secured $886 billion for the military. That was a 3% rise from the previous year. And it does not include the $200 billion in supplementary spending for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. In France, just as an example, it was announced last week that the government is going to be trying to impose pretty extreme austerity measures in the wake of Macron's declaration of 2022 that they were going to start a war economy, and where military spending had been boosted by 8%. And so all of this austerity requires repression, and these are the conditions in which fascism finds fertile ground. Clearly, Trump is the primary mouthpiece for the fascist movement, and the labor movement needs to clearly and firmly repudiate Trump and Vance's racist, sexist, bigoted rampage. I think we also need to be prepared to mount an emergency defense of our immigrant and LGBTQ siblings as fascist incitement to violence grows ever louder. The labor movement has the potential to be the strongest force out there to oppose fascism. We do this by showing that our opposition is rooted in the defense of the working class as a whole, organized and organized, white, black, citizen, non-citizen. And we expose the lies and the scapegoating as nothing more than an effort to drive down the cost of labor power for those aforementioned capitalists. Our success depends on honoring the old union slogan, an injury to one is an injury to all. And that code needs to be extended to our siblings around the world, from Yemen to North Korea, from Palestine to Haiti. Remember that at BlackRock and JP Morgan Chase's behest, Biden has taken more than $200 billion from us in tax dollars to arm fascism in Ukraine and Israel. BlackRock will not be content with all of Palestine. They will not be content with all of Russia for that sake. They are coming for us too. In short, we cannot sow the illusion that a Harris-Walz presidency will do anything to check the capitalist push towards fascism and war. Here in Louisiana, we feel an urgent need to impart this understanding of the threat posed to workers by the increasing dictatorship of the war profiteers of their economy. And it's part of the motivation for getting out a paper that we call the Louisiana Worker, which we bring to picket lines, to corner stops, to bus stops, grocery store parking lots. And it's through this means and others that we're determined to break through all of the lies, to expose the real forces behind the attacks on our living standards and on our rights, so that we can build a working class movement to fight back. And so if any of you are interested more in this Louisiana Worker, I do have a copy of it right here. This is our little Trump Landry. And, for example, one of the articles that we're doing to try to refute some of the lies about our immigrant siblings. and say that on a class basis,
Mm.
that's not for us. These are all the lies of the millionaires and the billionaires. So yeah, that's kind of some of the work that we're trying to do here to expose who's really behind the fascist threat.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Joseph. Very good. The listing of different forms historically that the organization of the working class has taken, is very is something that I hope we'll be examining throughout. What forms can organization take for us in this 21st century development of fascism in this country? So very, very important. And now we have this is the from the Nikisha Pickens from the United Southern Service Workers Union to speak a few minutes. Mr. Nikisha. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Sorry. Hey y'all, my name is Keisha. I think my organization understands the importance of elections, and we need more politicians who are in support of our unions. For the organization and myself, we're pushing for pro-unit candidates to be selected. During Hurricane Helena, it was the union that offered us more help. We have been encountering people to vote specifically for pro-unit candidates. No matter what the outcome of election, we will continue to fight for livable wages, consistent hours, and workers' rights. We will still fight for workers to have a seat at the table and be treated fairly. We will always encounter workers to stand up for themselves and their coworkers and speak up. We will continue to push these companies to give higher pay, benefits, and an opportunity to take care of their families.
Very good.
Thank you.
That's very important. And when you say it was the union that helped during Helena, what were some of the things that that they were able to help with? You're back on mute.
Yes. Sorry. Can you say that one more time?
What were some of the things that the union was able to help with during the hurricane?
We was able to help with people who have kids, like diapers, wipes, formula, for the older kids and some of the adults, like water, gas, personal hygiene care, clothing, shoes. So we was able to help a lot for those that are in need right now.
Awesome.
And we
Very
also
good.
had a place to stay during the whole hurricane things. Like my union put us in Durham because of the hurricane and all the damage. So.
All right, thank you so much, sister. Very good. Let me ask, you brought up I think an important question, and I just want to get clarity, maybe, a couple of minutes each from each speaker. But in each of your unions and organizing work, are you encouraging people to vote during this election, even given, that, we have two bourgeois parties, and there's a lot of debate and controversy about whether people should vote or shouldn't vote. How are each of your unions looking at that, and what are you encouraging people to do? Anyone can start.
Well, Short answer, yes, we are encouraging people to vote. We have a two-party system that is very I see, very much in the woods together on a lot of issues. Number one, I think is the um way that they've been conducting business for corporations over the years. Seems like we have two pro-business parties that overlook us, especially the worker, for the corporate oligarchs who are basically running the country now. At this point, you see BlackRock owning, buying up houses all over the country, trying to make it a renter's economy, trying to basically put us back in a lord and serfs type of system. That's another way to suppress us, own a property and pass down generational wealth. And I think the other biggest issue is the killing of children and women and innocent civilians in Gaza, and fronting a war effort overseas while there is so much suffering here. Those are two things that we combat with our members. Um, Choosing whether or not they should go to the um, ballot box. Well, like I said, it's similar things have happened over the years. It's just a greater stake at this point, I believe, because of number one, the insurrection, which I mentioned before. That's just something that has happened in the past, but not on a national level before. It never happened at the state capitol before. It did take place in Wilmington, which was a successful insurrection where the black candidates that won there were driven out by white supremacists, which they burned down the state, burned down the city legislative building, and were able to get rid of all those candidates and replace them with the white supremacists of their choice. But this time, when it happened, it was on TV for everybody to see, and nobody could deny it. And instead of running away from it at 100 miles per hour, we've seen elements on the left, I mean, elements on the right embrace it and take it up as a charge of how they're going to fight for what uh, they believe over what is right for our country. Um, so we have encouraged our members. We're doing we have a very fantastic set of organizers here to help us out. We're going to do a early voting drive. We're getting together a bunch of employees. I believe next Wednesday to do another to go together to the vote polls to do early voting, and then again on Saturday. We've been sending out um, pamphlets on people that we've endorsed and giving direct comparison to down ballot candidates. We've endorsed one labor commissioner here, Braxton Winston, who is a union member, and is a very strong fighter for workers. He was on city council here in Charlotte, but now he's running for a state labor commissioner, and I believe that he's going to be a very strong person to stand up for workers in what capacity he can in that position. Um, yeah, so yeah, we've been encouraging our members to vote, and we will continue to do so.
Any anyone else? Joseph and
Yes, we from my union, yes, we want people to vote. We are encouraging people to get educated on who they want to vote for. And our Durham chapter has a vote drive too.
very good. So you were the first to say that you guys were encouraging people to vote.
I'd like to share a little bit of something on this. And some of you may be aware slightly of the situation. In Louisiana, the legislature is thoroughly reactionary. The vote for the presidential candidate will almost certainly go to Trump. But and so there's not much except that the local 270 did rebuke the leadership of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, who has officially not endorsed a candidate. Now, if that was on the basis of him saying these are both parties of Wall Street and the Pentagon, we're going to chart an independent path. That is not what Sean O'Brien is doing, and I tried to. I've been trying to circulate, a letter that puts forcefully, how much of a betrayal of the members O'Brien represents by by pandering to the Trumpists, by speaking at the Republican National Convention, by giving credence, to the most disgusting lies and demagogy of Trump, Vance, and company. And that there is a movement within the Teamsters to repudiate the leadership of Sean O'Brien. I know that the National Black Caucus similarly went against the O'Brien, and now that was an endorsement of Harris Walz. But if only on a strictly anti-racist basis, it's actually, I think, a warning to union members everywhere that we have to maintain extreme vigilance against chauvinism, against opportunism within our ranks. That you would have a scenario at this point where the head of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters is effectively, playing footsie with Donald Trump, going to Mar-a-Lago to work out a deal. It's completely driven a wedge into the union, and so there's a lot of work being done to try to heal that, and to hopefully steer the ship in a different direction. Well, get somebody else steering the ship, quite honestly.
And did you have anything you could share about what you guys are, how you guys are approaching it?
Sure. So our local union obviously did our PAC endorsements for local candidates. In particular, like I think our school board election is really important for our union. However, I do often try to say this when I have conversations about voting in the election, is that voting is not our only power. And I think oftentimes, especially from liberal politicians at the national level, there's just this idea of if we just vote hard enough, it'll fix everything. And, we hype up the power of voting. And I think that that's a strategic thing to have us forget about the other powers we have, which are direct action and withholding our labor. And so ultimately, I think we talk about labor being independent and unions being independent from both political parties. And I don't think that means not voting or voting independent or not participating in elections, but I think it means that our support as workers is conditional. And ultimately, we can vote and people can get in office, but if we're not organized enough to hold them accountable to the things they ran on, it really doesn't matter. We're just being used at that point. And so, yeah, vote, please vote in the election. But at the same time, let's have those conversations with our coworkers and remind them about the other power that they have, that 6-letter word strike that we can't legally talk about in Virginia in the public sector, technically. I guess we can talk about it. We can't do it quite yet. But I think that that's really important because a lot of people just act like, you vote on election day and then that's it. You just got to sit there and wait until the next election. But no, we all know this, right? We're organizers and people who do organizing work, but I think we need to do more to remind our friends, family, neighbors, coworkers about that power too, because voting is not the only thing you can do to change society.
Some excellent responses and outlooks that everybody is expressing. Let's do one more quick question, and then we'll open it up for the audience to be able to make comments and ask questions of the panel. Um, so, how can we encourage more workers in strategic sectors across the southern region, to begin building, power, building organization in the workplace committees and other forums, and beginning to take action in presence? What are your experiences with that process?
I think in a lot of ways we kind of just have to like model what we want to see happen. Like I know our collective bargaining campaign in Richmond was an influence to collective bargaining campaigns across the state. And it has like that trickle down effect. And I guess that trickle down effect, maybe a ripple effect is the right analogy there. And so I think like putting our politics into action and just doing the hard work of talking to each other and talking to your coworkers is kind of where that starts. And like I know like SWA also has like the salting program. I think that that's really important, especially people like with the politics that want to put them into action. Go salt somewhere and like organize a workplace, like make that ripple start happening somewhere else where it's not already happening.
Very good. Anybody else?
Yeah, so I think
Dominic, go ahead.
yeah, I'm here. So I'm looking at a packet right now that was sent out by one of our partners. Um I'm looking at it. The Charlotte Metrolina Union Voter Guide. It is. I'm looking at this Project 2025 thing that they've put out. Um, it's just another form of how they're saying, or how the right in this country is moving with Project 2025, even though on TV they're moving away from it at light speed because they know how toxic it is. But in Project 2025, they have language that makes it harder to form a union. They want to fire union members for supporting their union, and they want to eliminate bargaining and weaken your union. Um, that's just what they're doing on the right. See, on the left, what they do is more subtle. They basically do what Ann said, try to take the power away from the people and put it in their hands and kind of gently nudge you to the side saying, we got it, we'll take care of you. Even if you don't get all of what you want, you'll get some of what you want. And then some of what you want is just going to be trickled on you just a little bit at a time. So we have to look upon each other. We have to look in ourselves. We have to realize that this isn't something that just happened today. This isn't something that just happened the last 8 years. This is something that's been going on with our electorate since the beginning of this country, where the only time where we've seen real change is when it came from the people. Um, every time in this country, the only time we've seen significant legislative change, whether it been FDR being pushed by socialists, which had positions of power around the country, when we are more freer to decide who are going to be the leaders, or all the way up to Barack Obama, which he pushed um, for the Affordable Care Act, which was a wing plan, which I don't believe we would have got there if it hadn't been people calling for Medicare for all. But all of those important changes came from the bottom. We have to remember that if it's not for us, then no one is going to be able to get ahead. It's not for people on this call using their power to organize, and for unions ourselves being workers, and workers having the ultimate power in this country, which is control over the economy, being able to shut that down, move it slowly, move it forward, or take it back. If it wasn't for us, if we could gather and utilize that power and use it to its fullest potential, this would truly become a nation for workers. This would truly become a nation where we could control the narrative and make sure everything that we need as citizens of the United States to be able to get those things here for us, and not just us here, because UE speaks of national unionism. We celebrate May Day, which we understand was separate from Labor Day because the corporate people in charge wanted to move those dates as farther apart they could in order to discourage international solidarity. But we have partnerships with people in Europe, the Italians. We've been in Japan supporting workers over there, Mexico, Canada with Unifor. And even take trips to Cuba. Every year we send UE representatives to Cuba in order to learn from these other regimes about how they're supporting workers and how we can stay connected to them in order to broaden out the partnership and the camaraderie, not just here but abroad. And I think if we continue to educate our members and keep on educating ourselves, then we will be able to utilize, well, realize, and then utilize that power as workers to be able to fight against the fascist right and the liberal, do nothing, get a little bit done left.
Excellent, Brother Dominic, as always. Um, any anybody else want to speak on this? Nikisha, did you have any thoughts you wanted to share on this, or Joseph?
I would say right on to Dominic. Basically, the power is in the working class. That's,
That's right.
the power of the working class exerted is the potential to transform society for the working class. And every right that we've won, every right that we enjoy today, which is under attack, has been won through struggle and been won through sacrifice and has been won through the organization of the working class, multinational of all genders coming together to fight in our own name. And that's the legacy of the militant labor movement of the 30s, of the 40s, for example, which won all of those benefits that we now take for granted, but we should not. That is to say, unemployment benefits, Social Security, the right to a union, et cetera, et cetera. It's a history that the capitalists have been determined to completely suppress, of the multinational working class coming together to organize massive hunger marches, in every major city. There were unemployed and employed councils in every major city across the country during the economic crisis of the late 30s and early 40s. So completely second that. And then to say that we're only going to understand the conditions that workers face and to be able to be persuasive to bring people around to the understanding that we do have the power by being among workers. And so, go into the workplace. That's where you're going to be able, that's the place to be. And on the shop floor is the place to do ideological battle. Truly.
Well, excellent presentations and commentary up until now, and explaining the facts and the history of what each of your unions has been engaged in doing, how you're looking at things. There's a lot to share. So I think what we'd like to do now is open it up for comments or questions for the panel, or sharing some thoughts on any of the questions that we've raised, or any new ones that people want to raise. And I'm going to ask each person to hold their, to just take a minute to make their comment or raise their question so that, more than one person gets the opportunity to speak. And we also have time for our panelists to respond. So let's open. Is there anybody?
Yes, dear. My name's Diane Robinson. Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
We can hear you, Diane.
Okay. And yes, excuse me?
I said, yes, we hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm from Durham, North Carolina. I'm a 36-year employee from UPS and 36-year Teamster 391, Greensboro, North Carolina. Last 2023, I was fed up with the corrupt leadership and the corrupt UPS. And they were colluding together. They didn't abide by the contract. So I decided that if I'm going to do anything, I have to get inside, be a leader, become a leader in the union. And that's very hard because I did the research on Local 391, and they had been in existence for 85 years, and they had never had a Black female to even get nominated. So I kind of outsmarted them, and I was named the first double minority. I was named the first female and African American to even get nominated. I got nominated in 2023. They we did the election. They rigged the election. I did a lot of research. I figured out how they were rigging the elections for 85 years. After the whole 85 years, no reformers ever won an election because the incumbent is always cheated. So I ended up getting nominated. I figured out they rigged it. I filed the 3 timely protests, and my protest, third one, went all the way to the Department of Labor. I was the first person in 85 years that got a protest to go all the way to the Department of Labor. They commended me on it. And so what I did was I figured out how they were rigging the election. So I stole the election back.
Okay.
And I try to tell people that if you and I was also the 36 years, but I was terminated 37 times, and I got my job back myself because what I did was I memorized UPS policies and procedures, then I memorized the Teamster contract, and so every time, and so both of them hated me. Because I could just, if you wanted to know article, section, blase, I could quote it to you. And everybody loved me. They called me OG, the other God. Because
well, thank you, Diane, for your comment.
And then there's OG.
Thank you for your comment and sharing some of your history with us. Thank you so much. I got a couple other people on stack. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to comment. Thank you so much, though.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. I think Gabrielle was next.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Thank you all. I just want to raise a few points about, from my experience as a longtime union organizer, both inside, in plant, and out. The situation now is extremely dangerous, I think we all recognize, and dangerous not only for our unions, for our contracts, which cannot be viewed in isolation from all the rest of what's going on in society. I think the time is now for us to collectively have some very serious discussions with all our collective experience and knowledge that we have, and sit down for as long as it takes to come up with a strategy. I find that workers of all nationalities are being sucked into the right-wing politics. I don't for 1 minute believe that everybody, all workers in this country, not even all white workers in this country, are extreme rightists. I don't believe that. But I don't think that they hear much from us. Even though they may be on social media, they're not on our social media. And a lot of what they might see if they were on our social media, they would not understand. I think there is a great deal of work that we can do collectively to reach out to the workers, but more than anything that would make a difference is if we collectively made the union movement take some really bold and sweeping actions on behalf of the entire body of the working class in order to explain to the members that this is for the membership, not to distract from the strength of the union, but to increase the strength of the union. For example, minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour, or maybe a little more. We should join hands across Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, and wherever else we need to. And we do not have any provisions here for a popular referendum. We do not have an independent way to get a referendum on the ballot in the state of Louisiana, like they did in Florida, by the way. And I think that if the population of the working class, both black and white, saw that we were doing everything it took to say, we are not going to allow these starvation wages to prevail. South is a region with enormous capital investment that is flowing into the region expressly because of the low wages, expressively because of right to work laws and the different. And whatever it would take, whether it takes sit-ins, disruptions, shutting down highways for the union movement to attract workers, many workers, great workers, workers that have all kinds of ideas are feeling pessimistic and that they have often feel that they can't get anything done. And we have to overcome this even when we're all a union. Many workers here don't understand collective bargaining or what being in a union is. We all know this, the people that are gathered here today. And that's part of what, don't have any idea what a union even is. So I think that we are in such a situation.
Thank you so much, Gabrielle. Close out now. We've got a couple other people on stack. Go ahead, finish your thoughts.
Finish, Jackie.
Very good. Thank you so much. I think we had next. Remember, everybody, we're trying to just take a minute each to make our comment or ask our question. And then I think it's been working well if you put your name in the chat if you want to speak. That's helpful so we know who to call on next. All right, Scott was next. Go ahead, Scott.
Hey, I'm Scott. I'm a working rank and file electrician with IBT, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers 666, Richmond, Virginia, and a member of Richmond Works Assembly. There's no blue collar union that I'm aware of that has gone in harder on supporting the Biden administration than mine, such that, I mean, I've been hearing people freak out about Sean O'Brien talk at the RNC so much, but the president of my union spoke up at the DNC. And let me tell you, like, seeing him up there, and I got to be real, like, the Biden administration has been very good in my union, you know, very, very good. Like, our people are in there, like, helping to make the decisions to support labor. That's the truth, right? But, like, people are freaking out about this Project 2025. This is the same stuff the right-wingers have been saying my entire lifetime. There's nothing new in there. There's not one new word in the things that they say they want. They talk about they're bringing fascism. The Biden administration has deported more people than Trump ever did. They're talking about they're bringing fascism, but as far as I can tell, Trump never burned every single bit of political capital he ever accumulated to support a genocide in front of the entire world to see. And I will never, ever support a genocidaire for president or someone who has supported them. And if someone talks to me about it, as people do, we're at the job, you know, same as anybody else. I'll tell them that the Biden administration is very good to us in the IPW, but I didn't see Trump support a genocide. I've never seen him do that one time. And that's all I got to say about that.
Okay. All right, Scott, thank you so much for your comment. I think Rhonda had her put her name in the chat next. Go ahead, Rhonda. You're on mute. You're on mute. Yeah, you're still on mute. I don't know if anybody can see. Okay, Rhonda. Well, we're not able to hear you, so let's go for next comment.
I'm here. I'm so sorry. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
My phone wasn't being agreeable. I'm a retired sociologist. I live in Florida. I've done most of my work was in community. In fact, my goal was to take as many resources out of our college and bring it back out into the community. And one of my goals was to elevate the knowledge of our community people who were working in the community to help people, to work with people and bring them up to the same level as that we would bring our research knowledge, because it's all important. And we try to bring it to the table. So that's kind of my background. And I'm not a union. I haven't worked on unions, so this is a little different, but somebody's asking the question, somebody raised the point, we need to bring us together, bring our knowledge together, find a way to make our voices heard. And one thing I've been arguing, I remember this from reading social activist research years ago, was we need an alternative narrative, a single alternative narrative that is clear, doesn't need to be spoken in revolutionary language, which intimidates a lot of people. It needs to be spoken in the everyday language of the people. And it needs to focus on what I consider our shared interests and needs. I have talked to hundreds of people. I'm one of those people, you stand next to me, I'm going to talk to you. And what I ask people about is, what is it you need? What is it you're worried about? And I've read research that sort of confirms my anecdotal experience. And that is, most people want the same thing. They want a decent life. You know, they want a nice place to live. They want a good job. They want their kids to have opportunities. They want safety, security, and hope, and they want some hope. We need to build that language, that narrative, because we haven't had it. There's not been a cohesive alternative narrative to go out there and shake up this mainstream, whether it's coming from liberals or conservatives. The reason conservatives are being successful is they're doing this and they're making everything sound like they care about the people. They're lying. We know that. But nobody else is doing that. And that is our biggest. And I built a local campaign on this notion. And I found myself a candidate. I said, we are only going to work for the people. We won. We won. We took out an incumbent.
Thank you.
And I think that
Rhonda, thank you so much for
yes. And I just wanted to bring that up.
Finish your thought. And okay.
Thank you for waiting for
me. No problem. Okay, if there's one more, I saw there was a comment in the chat. Let's take one more and then we'll get closing thoughts from each of the panelists and, move toward closing out our evening. Patrick, I know that she put a comment in the chat. Do you want to speak to that briefly?
Sure.
There's one last. Go ahead then. Go ahead.
Yeah. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Well, yeah, no, just a comment put in the chat was, what can we do at the local or city or municipal level to lay the foundations for a independent workers' party? Meaning, we're talking about challenging these reactionary, anti-worker, anti-people political forces. What can we do to sort of lay some building blocks in our unions and otherwise?
And you had some thoughts about that. Did you want to speak to that briefly, or anyone else?
Yeah, I can. I mean, I think I think it starts like what I said, I think in my opening comments about organizing people around a program and like a vision or a platform and not around a person, right? Like people have to see that like we are going to save ourselves. We are going to create the society that we want. And yeah, I think it starts with that. Like if we have to have a vision, when you have a vision, you build a coalition around that. You know, you hold people that are elected to that, and then eventually you get to the point where you can run your own candidates. And then you eventually run a bunch of your own candidates, you can form your own party. And I think it kind of scales up from there. But we're
That's
never
right.
going to have a candidate we want at the national level that supports working class people if we don't have that all over the local level in every city and county and municipality. So it really has to start at the bottom.
Really fantastic. You brought such a high level of organizational thinking and history from the work that you guys have been doing in Richmond to the panel tonight. So it's been wonderful. Why don't we go around and get final, just take a minute each and give a final thought for tonight in terms of each of our panelists. Joseph, why don't you, if you don't mind, start?
Well, thank you, Ashanti. Thank you for all the panelists that have spoken once again. I would just close by saying, let us gather our forces together. Our problems emanate from the same place. We are many and they are few. Let's compare notes. Let's do what we can to collectively build workers' institutions to exert workers' power, because that's where all of the power in society resides. And I look forward to seeing some of you soon to make good on these aims. Thank you, brothers and sisters.
Oh, go ahead.
You go. I don't know. I've been hearing a lot from everybody, and I come from a very humble beginning. Just as a poor black kid, really. So, and then just to come up in this world and seeing how things turn from bad to worse in my own life, and then to good. Um, I can only speak on what I've learned throughout these years from looking at past leaders. As soon as they said the
Everybody can hear me.
words, my
My it's dropped.
uh,
Can anybody hear me at all?
yeah, we hear you.
Okay. Well,
Okay,
Lakeisha, did you want to share any a final comment, final thought?
can you hear me? Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you.
We can hear. I think Dominic was still finishing up.
Yeah, I was right in the middle of it. All right, so I was just saying that just looking at back on past leaders, whenever they speak words and speak to the masses, and they say the words "my brothers, my sisters, my comrades," like people really felt it. You felt it in your heart, and you knew that they were speaking to you. The same thing that Trump does whenever he speaks to his people, that he speaks to the heart. They really hear it. And that's the thing. Whenever they speak like this, they become a target. But the thing that I believe that all of them have in common is a urge for power. And the only real leaders that you can like really respect is those that gain power to give it back to the people. And I believe that's the only way that we can really get anywhere in this country is by electing those that we see that want to increase the ability for people to take part in our democracy. So we need rank and file. We need rank choice voting system. We need to have that nationwide. And I think a nationwide direct ballot initiative are two great things that any leader that truly gets up on that stage and chooses to give power back to the people will have. And we can win that Because and the reason I think like that is because that's the way our union runs. We're a bottom-up union. We're ran by the people on the ground. My sister earlier was talking about how she had to fight against her union at the top level. See, our union at the top level only responds to the people on the bottom, and that's how they make their choices. That's how they're controlled, and that's how they're moved. If they're not, then they're moved out the way. You know what I'm saying? So that's I think that if we go forward with that goal in mind to increase those in power, to increase the power of those on the ground by giving power to those at the top who don't seek it for themselves but seek it for everyone else. I believe that's how we're going to, that's one step of how we can move forward. That's how we're going to get out of a war where we're killing kids and children for no damn reason. And my one brother spoke and said he's never heard Trump supported genocide. Trump doubled down on the genocide
Dominic,
of
I'm going to
Israel.
say thank you so much for your comments. Guys, I've completely lost audio myself. So, Ann, did you want to make a final comment and close this out here? And then we'll thank everybody.
Yeah. I think that like however the election turns out, it's almost more important what we do the day after. And I think those conversations with people, especially people that voted differently than we do. I grew up in Southwest Virginia. I know a lot of people that are Trump voters, and they're not evil human beings, right? They have the wrong root cause analysis as to why our society is the way it is. But that is something that can be unlearned and changed through difficult conversations and like struggling with people. So I think it's really easy, especially those of us in like pretty blue, like Democratic controlled places, to just write off working class people that vote another way and see Trump as their answer, as unredeemable. And I disagree with that. And I think it's really important that we remember that whatever happens after the election, and continue to struggle with people in our lives that, have the wrong understanding as to why things are they are, but they do recognize that something is fundamentally wrong. And I think that comes with the fact that neither party has working class interests at heart.
Yeah. I would like to say thank you for having us on. And we're definitely going to keep spreading the word about unions. Definitely about.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Nikisha, did you want to take the opportunity to make a closing comment?
Sure. I just want to say thank you for having us on. We're going to keep spreading the word about unions, definitely about USSW. And we're going to keep pushing the message to service workers to fight and don't be afraid to vote.
Well, just want to thank everybody for attending tonight. Fantastic audience, really important program. We heard a lot tonight that I think is very important to moving forward. Hopefully we'll have a chance to regroup after this election, see where we are, and plan our next steps in terms of moving forward. But really want to appreciate everybody for joining us tonight and being able to have this discussion, and hopefully we'll do more of these in the future. But fantastic audience and fantastic panel. Let's everybody please give them a hand. Appreciate them from the different parts of the country. Really excellent. And thank everybody so much. We'll say good night and appreciate all of you for being here.
Thank you. Good night. Have a good night.
And I'm sorry I lost the audio here at the end. So crazy. I don't know why. But anyway. Good night, everybody.